Hello, hello, everyone. Today is October 3rd, 2023. This is a meeting of the of SIG release. It's a meeting that will be recorded and put on the internet, so please be mindful of what you say and do. Please be sure to adhere to the Kubernetes code of conduct, and in general, just be awesome to each other. So we're going to kick off with some of the some of the various sub-project updates, starting with release engineering. Actually, before we start, do we have any new folks on the call who would like to introduce themselves, say hi, and what they're about, what they're here to do?
Hi, my name is Jason. I'm working in AWS EKS. I'm happy to join the meeting and then get involved in the SIG release work.
Nice to meet you, Jason.
Yeah.
Anyone else before we jump in?
Hello everyone, I'm Abhijit Gaurav from India and I'm currently participating in contributing to CNCF project Mesri. So this is the first meeting I joined for the Kubernetes SIG through website. And
Awesome. Nice to meet you, Abhijit, and glad this is your first meeting. Nice to have you in the community. Yes, Leo, correct. You're not currently sharing your screen. All right. So we've got some release engineering updates. I will share my screen momentarily. I've just got many things on it. Marco, it looks like the first. Oh, sorry, Jim does not appear to be on the call. But Marco, would you like to go through some of the updates across release engineering?
Yes, sure. So Jim left a note, I will read it. He's not here today, but patch releases went out last week. No major issues other than image signing and sending announcements to KDev. I wanted to ask if anyone has any idea if there's any updates on replacing SendGrid with something else, because I know that we discussed about that, and I think Jim proposed some ideas, but since Jim is not on this call, I will reach out to him and check if there's any update about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that there is an update at the moment. Veronica, maybe you're able to speak to that.
No, like I know that we don't have an option yet. We have talked about it, and basically Jim is the only one who was proposing things because he has been working with it for other projects, and like none of us have any experience with anything else. So right now it's on his plate, but not to say it's his sole responsibility, but like as Marco said,
He's the one who proposed, yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you everyone for bearing with us as we run through technical difficulties, and now also an ultra wide monitor who's acting up. So sharing. Let me know if I can't do it because Veronica, are you able to share your screen?
I was preparing for this. Okay, I will.
Zoom was asking me to leave the meeting to update my settings, so super duper.
It's a good thing we're not responsible for like running a technical project or anything.
No.
This happens in every meeting.
Thank you, Veronica.
Okay, I hope that you're seeing the right screen. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Great.
All right. Right, so we've got to revisit the SendGrid thing when Jim is available. Marco, you've got some updates as well on the OBS packages.
Yes, actually no major updates at this time. I only wanted to mention that we are seeing more and more traffic going over the new package repositories. Daily, it's about 200 to 300 gigabytes. Let's hope that it's going to pick up a little bit more. I'm probably going to do and plan another communication round with folks that the October patch releases are only going to the packages cat.io, and work on OBS packages is going to resume. It was on a little bit of hold over me being unavailable due to some work stuff and with CCAT's infra stability issues. So I hope to have some time to continue with this as soon as possible. Speaking of action items, as usually, board is here. And if there's anything that you would like to work on, please reach out to me and we can discuss it.
Sounds good. And we've got, let's see, schedules. All right. Okay, cool. All right, sweet. There is an update regarding that LFX project. Do you want to speak to that, Marco?
Yes, so Nitish finished with crowd operations for projects, and the next step is to write tests for what has been done so far. I think that it is going fairly well. I am pretty much happy with the result and output so far. I don't have any other updates at this moment, but Nitish and I have been busy with preparing for KubeCon, and we hope to catch up with stuff a bit and try to get tests and then to go ahead to CLI stuff that we planned.
Awesome. Good to hear. Do we have a, so I think given the target date for the cherry picks this month, can we plan to send that notification this week regarding the OBS packages?
Yes, sure.
And for the recording, the target date for this release is with the cherry pick deadline being please get all of your favorite backports in by then. All right, so we are moving now on. Any questions, comments, concerns about any of the things that we covered on the release engineering section? All right, we're going to move on to release team subproject. Priyanka, do you want to?
Yeah, I have my audio and everything working now. Hey everyone, so we will be having our enhancements freeze this week on October 6th. The team has finished reaching out to all KEP owners for the first time, and also reaching out for a reminder for enhancements freeze. I've also posted a note on chairs and leads just now, so outreach is going good. Another update is related to Alpha 2. We have it delayed last week and now it's planned for October 10. That's that. And I think I can't read my screen, so I'll just quickly switch. Mid-cycle retro is also scheduled for October 19. The invite just went out today. So if anyone is interested and have not received the invite, please reach out to Xander. And one last question for Marco. I discussed it with Jim during our release team meeting, but this was an item from our previous call. So I wanted to understand, do we need to document all the OBS related discussion we had during Alpha 1 thread sometime before our 129 next cuts? Is this important, or we need to just finish it sometime before 130 Alpha cut?
Yes, this is something that we definitely need to document at some point, but this is something that we don't have to worry about for 129 at all, because we have prepared the projects and we can now release any 129 that we have ahead of us. but for 1.30 and then later on it is important to have documented. We are still working on, as part of the LFX project and as part of the general OBS work, on improving the process. And as part of that, we are going to document like how to do everything the proper way and so on. So it will be documented, but nothing to worry for 129 at this point.
Thanks for the update. So, Marco, we are tracking this as part of 129 retrospective. Can I add you as owner just so that we know this will be worked on as part of the LFX work?
Sure, sounds good.
Thank you. Yeah, that's all from me for the release team. Any questions for me?
No, none from me. Thank you, Priyanka. Any questions from the rest of the group? All right, moving along. We are in open discussions now. So I mean, at this point, if you can feel free to add any topics here, but we're going to jump into a few, starting with the Go minor version bumps with Jordan. Jordan, you want to take it away?
Yeah. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
I might need to be made, I don't know, co-host or screen share or something.
Okay, let me add you.
I think you should be able to request.
I'm failing if I.
I made you a co-host.
Yeah, I got it. All right, thanks. Now let's see if Zoom lets me share my screen. All right, can you see my screen now?
Yep.
Yes.
So we are a few Go versions into our process of updating, taking new Go versions back to release branches. And just to review really quickly what that has involved for us, it means we track any changes we have to make in order to pick up a new Go version. Usually that's stuff like linters and tooling, and maybe fix some unit tests, maybe fix some things Go vet identified. Occasionally we have to bump a prereq, but we track whatever we have to update in the master branch to pick up a new Go version. And then we take just those changes back to release branches. And again, that's usually like unit tests and linters and things that aren't actually risky. And then after the new Go version has been out for at least 3 months and we don't know of any regressions and we've used it in a released Kubernetes version, then we bump our release branches. And so we've done this for Go 119, Go 120, and we're tracking changes for Go 121. It's worked pretty well. And anyway, now I'm looking to make this sort of systematic and take the things that we've been doing sort of ad hoc and make them just part of a system that we do. So looking to fill out these checkboxes for the KEP, and wanted to ask the release folks what the best way to track and coordinate this work is. So the specific work that we've been tracking, I'll give the examples for Go 120 and 122 or 121. So we've sort of been doing it in the main Golang update issue. These were prereq things that had to land in master branch. And so we make the list and then we make sure those get back to the release branches before we update to Go. So that's one category of stuff that we need to track. And then this was those timelines. Has it been at least 3 months that the Go version's been out? Has it been at least 1 month since we released Kubernetes on this? Are there no regressions known to impact Kubernetes? So in Go 119, there actually, or 120, there actually were, but we reported them to Go and got them fixed. We've been tracking this in like a comment on the Golang update issue, which means only the author of the comment or someone with edit access to the repo can keep this up to date, which doesn't seem great. It's nice that it's on GitHub because we see the merge status of PRs and stuff, and like that gets automatically updated, which is great. But I didn't know if there were suggestions for a place maybe it's okay. Maybe everyone on the release team who needs to mess with this already has edit access to this repo, and that's fine. The one for 121, 122, someone else created, and so I couldn't add stuff in there. Maybe that's fine. I didn't know if a GitHub project, if that was a thing that you all use regularly, that might work, but I was going to ask what you all thought might be a good way to do this going forward.
That is a great question. I think even in dealing with enhancements repos, another great example where you run into situations where like the milestone maintainers need to have effectively access to the repo.
I think we're doing similar things with the overall issue. So like whoever creates the update to go whatever issue
will have that edit access.
We'll have that edit access, but these things can span months sometimes, and it's likely other people will need to edit it. Maybe the right answer is everyone on the release team messing with this has edit access to the repo, and it's fine.
Yeah, and just for the sake of clarity, the release engineering group, not the release team, since they're separate subprojects.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So release team being the grand cat herders of every release cycle, release engineering being the subproject that handles the tooling and actually pushing the button.
Okay, all right. Okay, if we want to start by just sort of folding this template into the template. Yeah, I think
that's a great start. If you are someone who is also working on this, want to take a look at the issue template and see the kind of updates that it needs, I think overall this there was a dream of having a handbook of how the Go updates worked. And if you go into, actually, if you keep your screen open and head to the SIG release repo instead.
Help me out.
Yeah, so slash SIG hyphen release. Yeah. And then within release engineering, there's yes, right. So this was never completed, but it is. It felt like the updates were pretty mechanical, and it would be good to see checkboxes. So I kind of biased towards creating an issue template for this. But it would be good to have something in terms of methodology going into that go.md. So maybe if we want to start with just updating this issue template and then deriving some of the like, how did we reason about? So like Jason's question was great in the chat, which was how do we come up with a list of changes, right? And I think that is, some of that is intuition of, and having done this for a little bit, some of it is actively banging your head against trying to make Kubernetes build with a new version of Go, and and encountering CI failures and local failures. So I don't think it's a perfect science. So I think for the sake of expanding the group of people who are capable of doing this, it would be really good to talk to the methodology.
Okay.
So Jordan, it would be great to update some of the updates. I think because we're usually dealing with the actuality of doing the update, that going for updates to the issue template first would be great, and then following up with figuring out how we can get the Go handbook into a state that is more accurate.
Okay. For the question about how do we come up with a list of changes, typically those are just all the things we ended up having to merge and fix before master would pass tests with the new Go version. So we see linter issues or a unit test issue or vet catching new things, or occasionally we'll see like a bug, an actual bug that the new Go version exposed. Sometimes there's a dependency update, especially with our like tooling and static analysis stuff. Sometimes we have to update those so they can handle new Go versions like generics or whatever new keyword exists in the new language, stuff like that.
Yeah. So, Jason, I think that is the I think the generalized version is there's no perfect way to do it. And I think what's exciting about it is that the issues that you'll encounter are different every time. I think there's a class of issues to Jordan's point, and then there are some fun ones. I think was it Go 17 or 18 that we ran into, like the massive regression and scalability. That was not something that you were going to catch unless it was already merged.
Yeah, that kind of falls into the reason why we require a new Go version to land in a new released Kubernetes version and actually be out in the wild for a month before we take it back to release branches. Like we actually want to let it soak in our CI and get it out in release candidates and an actual release, so that flushes out some of those like long tail issues that our tests just don't catch ahead of time.
I see.
That's why we wait for a new Kubernetes version to be out for a month with the new Go version before we take it back to older releases.
Yeah, and thanks for the answer. And also another question is around with this new process, there any special new test we need to run for the Go compatibility? I think I already asked you on the Slack.
Yeah, so as part of this, we wanted to make sure that when we take new Go versions back to release branches, we didn't require the new Go version on the release branch. So people use our stuff, as libraries. And so we wanted to make sure that release branches stay buildable and pass tests, even if you're still using the original Go version for that minor. So we set up unit and integration tests, so that makes sure we build and pass all our unit tests and pass all our integration tests with actually exercise servers and things. Those are locked to the original Go version that minor released with. So those already pass. You can't even merge some. If you took one of these changes back to a release branch and it required the new Go version, those tests would fail and let us know.
I see. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. One more question. That is so you mentioned that we want to soak the change for some time. So basically, there are more thorough end-to-end tests running to make sure we are good with the Go version instead of the sanity test like integration and unit test, right?
Yeah, there's an extensive suite that runs on pre-submits, and then there's more. There are some scalability tests, and they call them release informing tests and release blocking tests, and there are more of those that run periodically on master, and so we make sure all of those are green by waiting until we've released a Kubernetes version on top of this new Go version. That ensures that all of those tests were also green.
I see. Yeah, thanks for the answer. It'd be appreciated if anyone can point me to the set of tasks, maybe a link. Yeah.
Yeah, I will let one of the release folks point you at the release test grid.
And
yeah, sure.
And I will be very happy to get involved in the Go version bomb work if there's any that need some work. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so I would encourage. I think I think definitely. Hold on. Let me just share the test grid in the chat. And that are that's the set of tests that SIG release is looking after, or a sample of the set of tests that we look after, including that SIG release master blocking board is going to show you the ones that we look at primarily to determine whether or not we are here to release. And I think we take lots of other signals across the across test grid, including the master informing grid. But yes, with regards to the Go version updates, I think there are two paths of work one is actually working on improvements or or clearing test failures from the Kubernetes side, and which may involve, to Jordan's point, sometimes working directly with the Golang team to bubble up some of these issues. And then the second path is the release engineering work, right? So what it takes to actually get a Go version into the various tests and suites and things and images that we build for Kubernetes. So I think the general note will be we will work on it. That work is, because of the level of access and the logs and various things, that work is mostly delegated to release manager's group. But we'd be happy to find ways to get more people involved in it. I think we're in a place where we need to tidy up the docs and understand. I think one of the most dangerous things that we've had with these Go updates, and just to note, for the call, Jordan, these are actually Go major updates because their Semver is like off to the side. So I think one of the more dangerous situations that I've seen with the Go major updates is that we don't have one person primarily assigned to it, delegating or watching the work, right? So when we run into a scenario where multiple people get involved in it and they are not understanding the entire system, we run into an issue where, like, oh, that image wasn't built, and that's the reason why this test is failing, and tracing it down. So give us some time to it's not that we want just one person working on it, but give us some time to work on math of doing this in a safe way.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Al.
Right.
All right.
Is there anything else that we wanted to cover on the Go major updates?
That was all I had.
Okay, cool. Jordan, you are still at the helm. It looks like you've got the next one. So.
Yeah. I'm going to zip through this. So we've talked a lot at various points about like release quality and being careful about what we release, trying not to regress people, and then being especially careful about what we release in patch versions, so that people can have total confidence in picking up a patch version and never be asking, like, is this going to regress me? And so to that end, we've talked with approvers, reviewers about what kinds of changes are good for cherry picks. We set up production readiness review to be more rigorous in how we do feature development and make sure there's mitigation paths for new stuff that we're landing. But I took some time to actually look through data since 1.19, which was when we went to our annual release cycle, and sort of evaluated each minor version for 14 months, which is our hand wavy support window. And I wanted to review that quickly and then ask a couple questions specifically for SIG release engineering branch manager cherry pick folks. I've already talked about this with SIG leads, and already talked about this with SIG Arch, and with an eye towards like informing how we do reviews and informing how we do production readiness. So my goal here is to kind of talk about how we manage backports, because that's what SIG release is primarily responsible for, has more responsibility for than other groups. But just to jump into the data really quick, one thing, let me explain this really quick. It makes lots of sense to me because I made it, but I realize it might not make sense to anyone else. Each column is a minor version. Each row is a month after we released the .0 of that version. So here's 14 months of 119, 14 months of 120, 121, so on and so forth. Some of the newer versions, we haven't actually gotten to 14 months since we released them. So 128's only been out for a month and a half, 127, 5 months maybe. The number here is the total number of regression fixes we backported to 119, to 120, to 121. So you can see by the time 119 got to 14 months after release, we had merged 33 regression fixes. Now, those generally were all regressions that existed at 119.0. So it wasn't like 119.0 was awesome and it got worse as time went on. It just means we discovered more issues and fixed more issues as time went on. And so some of these versions that haven't lived out 14 months yet, we don't know where they're going to end up. Maybe they'll sort of plateau. It looks like 126 has sort of plateaued. Maybe it'll live out its life, around the 16 regression window. Maybe we'll discover more. We don't know yet. But once I gathered that data for each version, then I was trying to compare across versions, saying like 1 month after release, what was the worst release we had, the median, and the best? 2 months after, what did those numbers look like? And so this kind of lets us hand-wavy compare a release to other releases at that point in its life cycle. And so you can see 119 was pretty bad. 121 and 122 were pretty bad. 124 and 125 were pretty good. 126 and 127 looked a little shaky. 126 seems to have leveled out. We found a bunch of issues about 5 months in, but that's actually leveled out. So it's now that it's 9 months out, it's sort of back into average territory again.
So if I can just pause for a second,
Yep.
is there a did you happen to do any analysis on the regressions? So regressions discovered versus regressions fixed. Right?
Yeah.
So right.
I haven't. There's a lot more I want to do. That particular dimension, most of the regressions that I know of that we discovered, we also fixed. It's pretty rare to find a
Leave
regression.
a regression hanging out. Yeah. Because where I'm tracking towards is is the fact that 124 is a good release, right? Like we have overall fewer regression fixes across the board.
Yep.
But is that a scenario because there were fewer regressions in the first place?
Well, we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
I've only found a couple examples where there was a known regression that we didn't actually land a fix for or haven't landed a fix for yet. So this is pretty representative of the regressions we know about as well. I know we're running short on time, so I want to sort of cut to the chase. The biggest thing I wanted to talk with SIG release about was regressions that didn't come in with the .0 release that happened during the 3 or 4 month development cycle, but regressions that came in with a patch release. There were actually way more of these than I thought there were. And so that's why it's helpful to go through the data and actually see what reality says. I found 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12-ish changes that got backported into patch releases that caused regressions. And of the 10 minor versions, so I looked at 119 and up, so there's 10 minor versions there. 9 of them had at least one patch release that introduced a regression. 128 hasn't yet, but 128 is like a month and a half old, so give it time. Sometimes the regressions got caught right away. Someone would notice and we'd fix it or revert it, like in the next patch release. Sometimes they wouldn't get caught for several patch releases. And so of the 125 patch versions, so like 119.1 and up, 121.1 and up, 121.1 and up, of the 125 patch versions, 36 of those would have regressed from the .0 release, which is like almost a third. Like I said, that's way higher than I expected. And so I wanted to start talking with SIG release folks about like how we manage backports, what our level of confidence required for a backport is. A lot of these were backports of like a cleanup or a bug fix, where we actually would have been better off just not merging it, not backporting it. And so there's implications for reviewers and approvers for sure. Like we spent some time with the leads talking about that. But there's also maybe implications for our backport policy, which like really encourages simultaneously backporting a fix to all active release branches. I'm not sure that's the right thing to do always. Like some of these, there's a fix and we backported it to like 4 patch releases and then discovered it broke. Like, would it have been better to take it to the most recent one and get signal from it before going further back? I don't know. Yeah.
I was kind of along the same train of thought. Like, is it better to take it to the least recent one instead? So like the impact is potentially more minimal. I don't know. Veronica, you've got your hand up. You've got your hand up.
Yeah, so I was in the original presentation that Jordan gave about this, and it was pretty detailed, and we wished we could have recorded that one. But also, as I think that for the most recent versions, it has been Marco and myself approving most of those. And I will just speak for myself, but I think that the current process doesn't allow for us, not only Marco and myself, but like all approvers, to decide a lot on things that should be merged or not, because most of the time, when we get there, is only to double check the parameters that are already established. So I think that the call should be made by the approvers or the owners on whether something needs to be backported into all the versions, all the branches, sorry. And I fundamentally agree with it because sometimes we have, I don't think this has happened very recently, but I don't know, over the past 4 versions, I remember I have had to leave behind some quote unquote important changes because they were not backported to every single branch and stuff like that. And I wished I could have, right? So yeah, I agree with that policy, but also delegating the, let's say, the responsibility, let's call it like that, into whether something has to be backported into every single branch or not, to be made by the owners. Also, this is for the future because we really want that task to be adopted by new members of our team or like people who want to help us. So trying to make it more, yeah, that you don't need all the context that Marco or I have, you know, to know about every single issue. So that would be nice, maybe a tag or I don't know. But yeah, that has been my experience.
So I think, yeah, so I think that and I would agree that I would expect the majority of the context to lie with the reviewers and approvers of that section to determine whether or not it is a good fit for release. It sounds like what I'm hearing is, our expectation is to go through, the OGTM approved, cherry pick not approved, section of each, branch's PRs, and get I think one of the touches is to get a vibe on whether or not this is a net new feature, to an area, whether this is what kind of impact it would have to the system in totality. I think from the release perspective, as opposed to from the individual features perspective. So I think I would agree that there is work to be done. I think on what our cherry pick approval process is. But I do think that part of that work is making, I guess, reviewers, approvers for these sections feel more ownership for the potential impact. So, so what do we think, Jordan? What are we, based on your analysis? What do we?
Yeah, the big takeaways for me, like 50% more regressions are coming from bug fix and cleanup stuff than from feature work, if you just look at the numbers, which is really surprising to me. Like I thought it was new stuff we were doing that was destabilizing things, but I think PRR actually improved things a lot there over the past couple of years. And so now it's like, oh, I fixed a bug. Let me just backport it really quick. And it's like, oh yeah, bug fix. Great.
Yeah, so this is, I mean, I think that maybe this is a bit of bias in the process, where if we see something that looks like a feature, our bias is towards not including it. So are we in a situation where we're measuring something that, like, we're seeing more regressions introduced from bug fixes because they are primarily the ones that are getting introduced?
So we don't backport features. We do backport regression fixes related to features. If a feature regressed something,
right,
we 100%.
I mean, that is our. I mean, that's top on our list outside of security fixes, right?
Yeah. So if the data is showing that even with that willingness to say very quickly backport a regression fix related to a feature that landed, we're very willing to do that, and even so, 50% of the regressions are coming in with bug fixes. I think I agree that the ownership for saying this is a critical thing, we have to backport it, we have to backport it just to these or to all, yes, we should be leaning on approvers to make those judgments because they have the context. I'm wondering if there are things in the cherry pick policy that can guide those reviewers and approvers to make better decisions. Sort of surfacing some of this, saying backports carry risk. We see that risk. Ask yourself, how could this break? We know the benefit, it's fixing some bug. Hopefully it has a test. Most of them have tests. Ask what the risk is. And there was one backport that sort of went back several releases, and I have no doubt it was fixing an important issue, but by the time it got back 3 releases, it had accumulated 18 commits across 5 PRs because a bunch of stuff had changed into that area. And it was just a giant change, and it regressed. I don't, examples like that are places I don't think we're really evaluating the risk relative to the known benefit. And so I think we can put better guidance in the cherry pick policy and ask for details of that. I wouldn't expect the branch managers to be evaluating all the context of the change, but I would expect them to say, can we see what the backport policy is asking for? What's the risk? What's the benefit? What's the severity of the issue it's fixing? Can the owner who has context provide that?
Yeah, totally. That said, every time that we do the cherry pick process, we do take a lot of time to go through, click on all the links. I mean, I haven't seen that Marco does that, but I'm sure because he's Marco and I do that as well. We don't just click. We go back and try to read all the code, the context, but also even with those things, when I see, for example, that something is already approved by Jordan, but and not only approved in GitHub, but asking everyone to please sort it out so that it can be part of the release, of course. Yeah. We go forward. So yeah, no, definitely we could we always ask questions, right? Yeah. Even when in our current policy, when something is not backported to all the branches and we see a need for that, we usually go and ask people, does this need to go back for another branch, etc. So the same way we can ask questions. The last thing that I will say, and then I will let Marco talk, is that then from my perspective, this could only work if we pushed the deadline, well, before, like earlier, because there are some contributors that leave this till like the very last day, which I understand, like we're all super busy, but then I literally always have like something in my calendar to take a look for like on Friday evenings of the deadline, because there is always at least one. So if we want to be better at this, maybe allow a couple of extra days for the deadline. Let's say instead of a Friday, let's do it on a Wednesday, so that if we have like extensions, because that's another thing, then sometimes there are extensions that really need to go in, and then we merge them on the following Monday, and so it's things like this. That is my perspective. I don't know, so that we can really make sure that what goes in doesn't really need a backport to all the additional branches or the other side. And that's it. Okay, Marco.
Yeah, so Marco, I'm sorry, I'm going to cut in because I need to push back on deadlines in general. I mentioned this on the release team meetings too. Like there is no such thing as a soft freeze. There's no such thing as a true deadline. I think if something is is of critical importance, we're going to figure out a way to get it done within a reasonable time frame. But at the same point, people really do need to feel ownership for their areas. The cherry picked that, like if you are concerned with getting something into the patch release on time, it needs to go into the patch release. It needs to get into the branch by the deadline. Like that is it. I think sending reminders, which is something that we do, is a reasonable way to get people moving in that direction. But it's, I think it becomes, we've got to give them a few extra days here. We've got to give them a few extra days here. What if we pulled this thing up and it kind of cascades into the system? So I'm very against moving deadlines if it is really a matter of making people more aware of the impact that they're making on the system. And sorry about jumping in, Marco.
Yeah, I wanted to ask one quick question. Do we have any data about how was the regression like found? Like we broke something in a patch release, how was it found? Was it found by some testing? Was it found by actually end user installing Kubernetes and running into the problem? Like, are there any indicators that we can use or that we can do something more of that we actually catch that? Or yeah, do we have any details about that?
For the ones that escaped in patch releases, it was almost always an end user report. Almost always. Yeah. For the ones that come in with the .0 release where something happened during 3 or 4 months of development, like there's a lot of different causes that are interesting to dig into. But for the patch releases, it almost always is a user report. I know we're out of time. There was one other question, which I will just toss out. I'm actually happy to start this on the mailing list as well. There was some metadata that I went through as I was doing this scrub, making sure the release note had the specific release where the regression got introduced. So if it came in with a minor, it came in with a patch, like just putting that in the release note. That's helpful for us. It's helpful for users. Making sure we only put the regression label on PRs that are actually fixing a regression in that minor. I think we're pretty inconsistent about that. So I did some cleanup there, but it would be good to find a way to like have that just be part of the review. If it has the label regression, is it fixing a regression in that minor? And if it's fixing a regression, does it have the regression label? And then the feature stuff, I sort of went through, we can talk about whether this is useful, but something that was fixing a regression in a feature that came in that minor, I also put the feature label on. It was helpful for queries. We can talk about whether we want to do that, but this will help. Having data like this, the release note is useful in general, but having the label data makes it easy to sort of run some of these queries in the future to see if we improve this.
Yeah, I think it's maybe suggesting a regression class of, you know, slash regression type, right? To kind of drill in a little bit more. Jordan, I would love, given that you review so many areas, to take a look. I'm sure that is a delight. To take a look at the cherry pick documentation that we have today and maybe suggest some updates.
Yep, happy to do that. I'll probably spin up a thread on the mailing list as well. We can follow up afterwards on this.
Sounds good. Folks, I know that we have gone over. I appreciate you taking an extra few minutes with us for some very important topics that kind of impact the viability of Kubernetes for our users. So thank you for taking that time. Jordan, thank you for taking the time to present as well. Thank you to our new folks who have joined the call, and hope to see you at the next one.
One last question to Jordan. Actually, so for the
Jason, if you don't mind, can we take this to Slack? There's a SIG release channel on Slack, and you can ask Jordan the question there. But we are well over time at this point.
Sorry for that. Yeah.
No problem.
Thank you so much. Take it easy, everyone.